This is an example of motion tracking in its simplest sense, in that we have a single point being tracked and an object is being applied as a target of that track. So here you can see a piece of text is following the guy's hand because we've tracked the red dot in the center of his palm and then we've attached the text to it. So that's what we're going to do in this video. We're just going to go through the steps. We're going to identify all the settings that you need to be aware of to do this properly. So I'm starting off with just a video file, and I'm going to double click it to open it up in layer view, and then I'm going to go to the tracker where I can find my track settings. If you can't find the tracker, just go up to the default views and you'll see motion tracking is available there, which will open it for you. So to track a single point, you go for the option track motion. This gives you a tracker, and the tracker is made up of a search region, which is the outer box, a feature region, which is the inner box, and then right in the middle we have what's called the attach point that allows us to attach objects onto our track. So for this to work, we need to be able to follow the red dot. So we drag the feature region. The red dot is our feature, so we're going to bring that box down over it. It zooms in, which is handy, and we can then center the red dot in that. The search region allows us to determine how many pixels does After Effects check to find if it can find that red dot frame by frame. So it needs to be big enough that we know that the red dot isn't going to go outside it at any point. You'll see that it's definitely big enough for this kind of movement. You don't want it so big that After Effects needs to check virtually the entire frame, because that'll just slow things down. The next thing we need to do, go into the options and tell After Effects exactly what kind of color differences we're looking for to identify the feature within this box. You always want to have clearly definable object that can be recognized as a contrast of some sort between the pixels in the image. In this case, it would make no sense to have RGB because his hand is pretty much red and the dot is red. Saturation also wouldn't do because the dot is probably as saturated as his hand, but we do see a difference in light and dark, so we can choose luminance. The next thing we need to check is the enhance before match. Make sure that's on. And down here we have adapt feature on every frame, so that if the dot looks slightly different on a subsequent frame, After Effects will use that as the basis for a search as it goes on. So we click adapt feature on every frame, and then for convenience we can tell it to do something if it thinks it's lost that dot. So if its confidence goes below a certain percentage. In this case, I select stop tracking if confidence is below 80%. So click OK. And the next thing we do then is we click on the Analyze Forward button to allow After Effects to automate the process as much as possible. So it's following the dot. The dot isn't moving particularly fast, so it's able to do it pretty convincingly. So this is a very small piece of video. I intentionally use this video because it's standard definition, and it means it's able to go through the pixels pretty quickly because there aren't that many pixels. Now, obviously, the dot disappears around here and his hand goes down. Now, I'm not going to treat that as something I want to try and fix or continue to track. I'm just going to hit the N key. I'm going to go Shift Control X just to chop that off the end. So now we just have the dot. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to attach an object. Now there's a few ways that you could do this. First of all, you need to create something in the composition view that you can attach. So in this case, I'm going to create a piece of text, and I'm just going to call it target. And I'll bring it down roughly over there. That's fine. Take that back out, get rid of that. Now, first off, before we attach this, we need to know how do we get back our track. Okay, well, one of the things you can do is you can double click it back into layer view, but you need to get used to selecting the layer in composition view and looking for the motion source, which is the video that you did the tracking on, And when you have that selected, it will give you any available trackers on that particular source. In this case, I only have one, so it just shows up in there as tracker 1. Now you can name these, which I probably should have done. Call it, follow red dot, for example. Nice and easy. Now I have a track called follow red dot, and that is going to allow me to track the position of the dot and apply it to the target. So the target is the text, and sorry, I need to be back in there. Go back through that. And yes. So edit target, target text, click OK, and click apply. So now it attaches the anchor point of the text to that attach point that we saw in the middle of the tracker, and it follows that around. Now this is okay, but there's a much nicer way of doing this, and that is to use a null object. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to undo a couple of steps there, or just the one step in fact. I'm going to create a null object, and this time I'm going to select that to be target and apply it. Now I have a null object that is following that around. All I need to do now is parent the text to the null object, and that will also move. Now this has the added advantage of allowing you to click and drag and move the text around, because it's not actually directly attached to the track. It means that it's a free agent. You can move it around because it's the null object that's attached. Now if I was to try and move the null object manually, I would be disconnecting it from the track, and that's not good. This is a much better way of doing it. So that is single point track using a null object.